Oh no. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hey guys, it's Callie and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite Netflix animated series. Now if you're new to my channel or if you're a new subscriber, welcome. Thank you guys so much for checking me out. I make weekly videos about whatever's on my mind, but some common topics include anime, cartoons, and kind of just nerdy stuff in general. So if that sounds like something you like, be sure to check out the other videos on my channel. Now so far I've made a lot of videos about anime, and while I do love anime, it's not the only thing I enjoy watching. In a previous video, I mentioned that Netflix has a lot of really good animated shows, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to just talk about some of my favorite non-anime Netflix originals. So without further ado, the first show I want to talk about is She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
For the honor of Grayskull.
The story follows Adora, who can transform into the legendary She-Ra, and her adventures with her friends as they fight against an evil organization called the Horde. I first heard about the show from one of my friends the day after the final season was released, and I then proceeded to binge the entire series in less than 2 days.
How is your life this sad?
The story is incredible, the characters are endearing, and it's really just super fun to watch. The show does a great job of dealing with some really serious themes while simultaneously incorporating some nice feel-good and downright hilarious moments. Not to mention the show has been highly praised for its LGBT+ representation. Some queer couples include Natasha and Spinderella, who are a lesbian married couple.
It's in the name. Net-tassa? Nets. I toss nets, okay?
Yes, darling, you have beautiful nets.
Bo's parents, who are a gay couple, Double Trouble, who's non-binary and casually uses they/them pronouns, as well as some characters who are intended to be trans men and trans women. The show's developer, Noelle Stevenson, who is amazing by the way, has stated that initially the show had to downplay a lot of the queer relationships early in production, but after fans voiced support for the queer subtext, they were able to increase their LGBT+ representation even more. I can't recommend this series enough. It's a great story, I love all the characters in it, and the entire thing just makes me feel like Scorpia is giving me a nice warm hug.
You'll be joined by Force Captain Scorpia.
Kitty! Huh?
Just so you know, I'm a hugger.
Another show that I love that's in a similar style is Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts. It follows the adventures of a girl named Kipo and her friends as they navigate a post-apocalyptic world run by mutated animals as they search for Kipo's father. The voice actor for Kipo also voiced Glimmer in She-Ra, so it's kind of a fun crossover moment. There are a number of reasons that I love this show, but I would argue that one of the main selling points for it is its music. From the catchy intro with amazing transitions into the title sequence to K-pop narwhals, it's all just so good. You can find the mixtapes from each season on Spotify, and honestly, there are some bangers on them.
You know I'll always be there.
The show also has some really well-written characters, and early on in the series, you get heavily invested in their lives and stories. Not to mention the show has also been praised for its representation of people of color and queer people of color, which isn't too commonly found in mainstream media. The only drawback of the show is that season 3, the final season, feels kind of unfinished. The developer of the show, Bill Walkoff, has stated that despite what fans think, Netflix didn't cancel Kipo and the series was intended to be told over 3 seasons. But I'm not really sure if I buy that. The pacing of the series have been really good so far, but midway through season 3, it felt like they just hit the gas pedal and didn't let up. The last few episodes feel rushed and storylines feel unfinished, and I was just really caught off guard because up until that point, they'd done an amazing job writing. Personally, I feel that halfway through season 3, they got word that they weren't going to be renewed and Netflix just told them to be hush-hush about it. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned that until recently, Netflix hasn't really done a good job advertising their animated shows. I was surprised that a show that was so similar to She-Ra was basically unheard of amongst my friends, all of whom had heard of and watched She-Ra before me. At the time, I also remember a lot of people criticizing Netflix on Twitter, saying that they weren't advertising Kipo enough and were basically just giving it the short end of the stick. So personally, I feel like Netflix just gave them the chop halfway through season 3 and the writers just had to scramble to try to wrap up this story. But rush ending or not, the series holds a really special place in my heart, and I suggest checking it out, especially if you enjoyed She-Ra.
Oh, it won't come out. It's setting.
Speaking of giving a series a short end of the stick, let's talk about one of my favorite series of all time, The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance.
Walk in the dark and deep, where the glow most glows and the coolies creep.
And while this series isn't necessarily animation, it is a medium of storytelling that isn't live action, and I really like it and just wanted to talk about it, so it's on the list. Now, I have a bone to pick with Netflix, but before I get on my soapbox, I'll give you guys a quick rundown of the series. The series serves as a prequel to the 1982 film The Dark Crystal, which was created by Jim Henson, the creator of The Muppets. Now, to explain the series, I'm going to use a bunch of terms that are unfamiliar and you're just gonna have to roll with it because this franchise has so much lore that it would take at least 20 minutes to go over half of it. So if you're completely unfamiliar with the series and want some background going into it, I highly recommend checking out the videos that James from The Odd Ones Out has made about them, which I'll link down below. He gives a really good summary about the lore and the franchise in general, and while I personally think he's a little too harsh on the prequel in the movie, the videos are really fun and informative, and I just love James.
I'm not ready to go alone. All right. Alone then.
Took you long enough.
Now, the prequels follow 3 young Gelflings as they start a rebellion against the tyrannical Skeksis who are destroying the planet and draining it of its essence. And I don't know how else to describe the show other than it's just a phenomenal fantasy series. The world building and the character development is incredible, and the writers do such a good job of raising the stakes and really getting you invested. You get a really good feel for who the characters are and what they're fighting for, and if you like fantasy series, I really think you'll enjoy this. And I haven't even mentioned the imagery. Visually, this show is stunning. Everything in the show is done with puppets, and it's honestly incredible what the puppeteers are able to do. From complex fight scenes to the tiniest of movements, it's all just so beautiful and impressive to watch. Some of my favorite moments from the series come from just watching how well the puppeteers are able to convey complex human emotions on a tiny Gelfling's face.
Choose.
The movements are so small and subtle, but they convey the message loud and clear. There's also this really fun scene where the puppets put on a puppet show, which is just fun to watch. They also brought in YouTuber Barnaby Dixon for some really cool finger puppeting in this scene.
And seeing our fate lies in the hands of the Gelfling.
Now, critically, the show was received incredibly well, and a lot of people called it an artistic masterpiece. However, that didn't stop Netflix from canceling it. I was honestly livid when I heard this news. This is one of the most artistic things that Netflix has ever made, and they killed it. It even won an Emmy for Outstanding Children's Show. And while there aren't a lot of details as to why the series was canceled, I have my own theory. Building the sets and the puppets for this series was no small feat, as some of the puppets are larger than their puppeteers. There's a really cool documentary on Netflix about the making of the series, and you get a glimpse into the amount of work and effort that went into making this visual masterpiece. So my theory is that it took way too much time and money to make these puppets, and Netflix just decided to throw in the towel, which is dumb. Once the puppet models are made, they can be used over and over again. The hardest part was already done, so the production of season 2 would have been a lot faster and smoother than that of season 1. Not to mention, if Netflix put in half the amount of effort into marketing this series as they do marketing their other terrible films that nobody wants to watch, this show would have taken off even more. At the time this series came out, I saw 0 ads for it, and instead I got a different ad every day on different social media platforms for some foreign teen comedy romance that I wasn't interested in and frankly didn't look very good. This series is a prime example of an amazing show that Netflix just didn't put the time or effort into marketing and really just supporting it. And while Netflix has recently gotten better at advertising their animated and non-live action shows, it's really a shame that this masterpiece was left behind. I cannot recommend this franchise enough to you guys. It's whimsical, enthralling, beautiful, and I just love it so much. The show is one of my favorite all-time series, animated or not, and I highly, highly recommend checking it out.
Play for your emperor!
They buggered up.
They've got a
Typical
lunch.
musicians union.
Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about a more mature show that Netflix has put out, and that's Bojack Horseman.
I'm not afraid of commitment. I commit to things all the time. It's the following through on that commitment that I take issue with.
And Bojack is incredible. I'm just in awe of the writing of the show. To put it simply, the show follows the lead character Bojack in his day-to-day life as he deals with his struggles. And while it starts off with a more overly comedic style, it quickly delves into more serious topics such as addiction, depression, anxiety, and self-worth. I don't think another show could do as good of a job encompassing such complex human emotions and struggles while having a lot of the characters just be talking animals. And to be honest, the show is kind of hard to watch at times because these characters represent the worst parts in each of us, and at some point you find yourself relating to these objectively terrible individuals. The writers do a phenomenal job portraying what it means to be human and the emotions that come along with being alive. Again, fair warning, the show is a lot. One of the episodes stuck with me for a few days afterwards, and I had to binge kind of dog and cat videos to balance myself out. But that really just speaks to how well the show and the writers are able to connect with the viewer and elicit such raw and powerful emotions.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go take a shower, so I can't tell if I'm crying or not.
Staying in the mature realm, the next show I want to talk about is Midnight Gospel. Now, I'm actually still in the process of watching this show, but from what I've seen so far, it's pretty interesting. It's hard to fully describe the show, but a simple summary is that it follows Clancy Gilroy as he travels to different multiverses and interviews their inhabitants for a space cast. The conversations have a philosophical vibe to it, and the topics differ greatly both between episodes, but also from the start and the beginning to the one you're watching. The show is created by Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, and Duncan Trussell, and the interviews we hear in the show are actually from Duncan's own podcast, the Duncan Trussell Family Hour. Ward was a fan of Duncan's podcast and reached out to him to see if he wanted to work on an animated series of it, which they did. The show is so interesting because you have these two storylines that are happening concurrently. You have these characters that are having these really deep and intense conversations while they're trying to survive the zombie apocalypse.
Buddha compares anger to a sweet flower with bitter roots, and so we follow the sweetness down.
Is she in labor?
Yeah, she's like...
Okay, all right, okay.
The interviews featured in the show are also described to be revolutionary moments in Duncan's career, as they show the moment when he heard something that changed the way he viewed the world. Guests range from doctors to novelists to activists, and there's something just so unique about listening to this serious conversations while the main characters are trying not to be eaten alive. The show strikes a good balance between humor and reflection, and honestly, I'm surprised I'm enjoying it. I've heard really good things about the show the past year, and after checking it out, I can see why. The show is different than what I usually watch, and I don't think I'll binge it just because of how serious some of the conversations are, but it is something that I want to continue watching and do see myself continuing to come back to in the future. I also really like that the main character is a podcaster, and as a fellow amateur content creator, I just really like that aspect of Clancy.
And to my one subscriber, Hernock Jensen, I live for you. You're the reason I wake up in the morning with a smile on my face.
So if you're a fan of philosophy, Adventure Time, or whatever Night Vale's got going on, you might like the show. You can definitely see that the show isn't for everybody, but I recommend checking out an episode or two to see if it might surprise you.
I love being around people that help me see the world through a new pair of glasses, and you're one of those people.
And the last more mature show I want to talk about is Love, Death, and Robots. This is another show that I've recently watched, but oh my god is it amazing. So Love, Death, and Robots is an adult anthology series, meaning that each episode is its own story and is independent from the other episodes. When watching it, I was surprised with how well each episode was able to complete a story in such a short time period. Episodes range from 6 to 20 minutes, so the stories are fairly short, but it's incredible how much they're able to fit in just those few minutes. And honestly, every episode is incredible in its own way. It's so cool to see these animators and writers be able to tell the story in the medium they want. The show has an incredible variety of animation styles, and it's really just so cool to see all these different art styles and methods of storytelling. And the stories are incredibly varied as well. They range from self-aware yogurt that has taken over the world to Russian soldiers fighting an ancient evil. Some are hilarious comedies, and some have outright terrifying scenarios. It's honestly easier to pick out the one that I didn't like than try to pick my favorite out of the bunch, but here are a few that stick out to me if you're looking to check the series out. I do want to say that the show is rated TV MA for a reason. It's a lot of swearing, a lot of nudity, and a lot of gore in some of the episodes, so if that isn't your jam, maybe this show isn't for you. But if you don't care about that stuff like me, here are some of my favorite episodes. In terms of comedy, we have Automated Customer Service, which takes terrible customer service to a hilarious new high. There's also 3 Robots that follows, you guessed it, 3 robots on their sightseeing tour through a post-apocalyptic city. The short is so good, and it's impressive with how many jokes they're able to fit in and land in just 12 minutes.
These were humans. Bouncing things was close to maxing out their cognitive range.
No, but also sometimes they would take the ball and hit it with like a stick.
What? When they misbehaved?
Bad ball. Think about what you've done.
I just really like this episode. Sakura Souls also gets a special shout out. Some stories that are a little bit more serious I enjoyed include Good Hunting. This is a really interesting story that touches upon themes such as colonialism and woman autonomy/agency. Helping Hand gave me incredible anxiety. All Through the House feels like Nightmare Before Christmas on steroids. And Season 1, Episode 8, The Witness, might just be my favorite. I love the way they incorporate all these different art styles, and the entire thing just feels like a trippy work of art. I will warn you that this episode is kind of a lot, but it really feels more like an experience rather than just a standalone story. To be honest, I recommend watching them all. There was really only one episode that I thought was just okay, but all the other episodes are bangers in their own way. If you love animation storytelling and don't mind some of the episodes having swearing, nudity, or gore, I highly recommend checking out this series.
You've asked to speak to a human representative. The current wait time is 6 hours and 14 minutes.
Seriously.
Taking a very sharp turn, the next show I want to mention is the adaptation of Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham. And just hear me out. While the show is clearly intended for children, I was surprised with how much I enjoyed the show. There are some really funny moments that made me laugh throughout the series, and I appreciated the overall message of the show. They touch upon topics of loneliness and isolation, which I think is really nice for a children's show. It's so cool to see a children's program talk about mental health, because it can really help children learn how to better understand and vocalize their feelings from a young age. Don't get me wrong, Dora is great and all, but I wish I had a show like this as a kid. And the last show I want to talk about actually isn't on Netflix yet, but is coming in 2022, and that's being PuppyCat.
I got fired today.
Being PuppyCat is an animated web series whose initial pilot was released in 2013 and has since had a long journey. It follows Bee, an unemployed woman in her 20s, and whatever PuppyCat is, on fun adventures and freelance jobs. It's developed a cult following over the years, and I honestly love this series, so I hope it's found a permanent home in Netflix, because I really just want the next season to come out and I don't want to watch it in some sketchy foreign website. If you want to get a head start, you can find tidbits of the show scattered throughout the internet, but I'm really just excited to see the show revamped for its new platform.
Are you gonna be okay?
Oh my god! Oh my god! Wait! I have stuff for your stuff!
So yeah, those were some of my favorite animated shows on Netflix. And honestly, I only mentioned a handful of them. Netflix is surprisingly one of the best places for animators on the internet, as they have such a diverse range of content and really do seem to allow the creators to express themselves however they want. I really hope Netflix continues to support their animators because they have some really good gems on the platform, and I honestly can't wait to see what else they come out with. But yeah, what are some of your thoughts? Have you watched any of the series and do you enjoy them? Is there something I didn't mention that you recommend checking out? Do you also share my burning hatred over the fact that Age of Resistance was cancelled? Let me know down in the comments. I love hearing from you guys and I'm always down for show recommendations. But yeah, that'll do it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you aren't already. It really helps out the channel and I appreciate it a lot. I also wanted to mention that I will be taking next week off from posting, but I'll be back in 2 weeks with more weekly content for you guys. So if you want to see what the next video is about, be sure to subscribe. And if you want more content while I'm away, be sure to check out some of the other videos on my channel if you haven't already. But yeah, thank you guys so much again for watching and just for your overall support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!